Welcome to this. Welcome to this meeting of the Milton Planning Board. It is our 18th meeting of the fiscal year 2016.
That was a typo, it was already posted.
What?
It was already posted, I didn't want to, like, I noticed it yesterday, I was like,
We're just ahead of ourselves.
I thought I forgot what year it
Time
was.
really flies.
It really does.
Are you having fun?
All right, I'm
have
Alex
a lot of
Whiteside, the chairman, and we're going to introduce ourselves and give any introductory remarks that people may care to do.
Ed Duffy, member. No introductory remarks. Mike Kelly, member.
William Clark, Planning Director.
Emily Martin, admin.
Tim Serwinski, Assistant Town Planner.
Brian Furs, member.
Emily Ennis, member.
Okay, that's successful. We're going to meet again on the 9th of April. And then we're going to meet again on the 23rd of April. And who knows, we might even meet on the 16th, but it's not scheduled yet. And we hope that we don't meet then. Now, we have 3 sets of minutes. And I've read them. And it takes a while. But they're very complete, I think.
I think we've got 4.
What?
December 10th, December 30th, January 8th, and January 22nd.
Okay, did I look at the 10th? I think I did. 4 sets of minutes. So, we probably should approve these minutes because the public likes to read our minutes, and
Do you want to approve them individually or as a block?
I would like them to be approved as a block. But I am prepared to, whatever the motion is, I think I can handle it.
All right. Well, then I would move that the board approve the minutes of December 10th, 2014, December 30th, 2014, January 8th, 2015, and January 22nd, 2015.
Second.
All right, any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, good. Now, citizens speak. Are there any citizens who want to speak on something? We have a citizen, good. Welcome. Let me,
Laura Griffin, I'm a resident of...
okay, let me caution you, Laura, that you're being recorded and televised.
I know, I tell them to keep the camera off. We got all these other handsome people. Okay, I'm here about the our citizens petition, and there's one of these for each of the sign committee, the planning board. There's one of those, yeah. There should be 5. So, does that have pictures with it, that one? Eddie,
Is this one? Oh, this is one
I
packet.
think it is one,
are
yes.
there pictures in the
All right,
back of
this is the real test, Laura, if you can get it to go
There are
straight.
pictures in the package, yes.
Everybody's got the pictures.
Yep,
Everybody's got the pictures.
yep.
There we go.
That was impressive, yes.
I wasn't on my high school basketball team, but not a problem. Okay, just to take a look at those pictures. If you look at the first one, that's an antique clock. People are spending about $100,000 for donations. The next picture, this is Milton Gas. That's actually flashing into a town employee's bedroom window. She won't complain about it, but I did ask her, and she said it's all over the neighborhood. The next picture, if you look at how nice Mr. Chan's is, and then all around it are what have been allowed. If you look at the next pictures, it's what happens when nobody's paying attention. This was the Kennedy Building with 5 or 6 different flashing lights up there before they finally got their sleepy sign. And the last picture is a wooden sign on Quincy's busy Newport Avenue. And the very last picture is a picture of a sign that says Dunkin' Donuts open at 5 o'clock. I mentioned that to Mr. Prondak, and he took it down within a week. I will be mentioning this item from 204 Selectmen and 214 Selectmen. And there you have down here under E, if you look at 2 under E, Selectmen said it's all right. A couple of weeks ago, they said they don't care if signs are at an angle. I don't know if they can do that. November 19th was a Wednesday meeting in the Board of Selectmen. If you look at 9, and it's highlighted, that was the 18-foot sign that's on the Granite Avenue building. And that's all the notice people had, was that. I think there should be public notice. And I think that's it. Oh, and then Nantucket, I don't think we want to go Nantucket's way, but you could take a look at the index for Nantucket's signs. This is my town. This is your town. I'm asking you not only to support this article, but you'll need to doctor it. You'll have to, if you look at the article, it's the last page here. And apparently it should say new backlit, and not, instead of just neon and lead, it should say new backlit or something. But, I mean, that's up to you. New signage is welcome as long as it conforms, as are all municipal signs. I believe, and I am not alone, that recently approved signs at the gateway to Milton, certain business and window signs in our main business district and throughout the town, including a flashing lottery sign, are adversely impacting the quality of our town. Currently, we have large LED signs at 3 of our town's gateways, all approved by selectmen. Supporters will say they're far enough from private property to have little or no effect. I disagree. Milton is now defined by what some call Las Vegas signage at our gateways. Sleepy signs mean we're entering Milton. The law firm sign at the Flatley Building informs those on the highway of Milton's location and competes with the beauty of those using the river. Mr. Whiteside, I know you're interested in the lawn signs and everything, but lawn signs can be pulled down anytime. These signs cannot. These signs, you have to take care of them before they go up. The extra space signs tells drivers they're leaving Milton. And there's now a bank sign shining on the expressway and across Granite Avenue to our business district. You can tell you're in Milton or leaving Milton by all this bright, garish signing. And I don't want you to take my word for it. Take a ride in East Milton Square at night, maybe after you leave tonight. I know you're going to finish up real early. Signage sets the tone, and don't kid yourself, it affects the real estate values in every part of town. It's like a mansion painted beside a rundown shack. Yeah, I live in Milton. I've seen Milton. It's really lively there. The first item on the master plan list is, and I'm not sure I got this right. Are you on the master plan? Is it protect or preserve?
It's close to that, yeah.
What is it, preserve the heritage?
Preserve the historic and physical character is
And that's number 1.
yeah.
That's number 1. Or something like that. That's what we're asking you to do. These signs are laughing at the work and the time that many of our leaders have spent in the past on signage. They are laughing at the many businesses like Mr. Chan's, Fitness Unlimited, Brugger's Bakery, that comply with our town's signage recommendation. This town meeting article is intended to stop approval only of new offensive signage. It does not and cannot apply to signs already allowed, those encouraged under our sign bylaws are approved already. If it is necessary to include that in the proposal, please do so through an amendment at town meeting. In the past year, selectmen have approved sign after sign and building lights with little to no input from residents. The latest, the 18-foot sign on the Flatley building at 2 Granite Avenue, Selectman Tom Hurley said, "This is the wave of the future, and those traditionalists in town should understand we are in the 21st century." He did say that. One resident asked Selectman that night with the 18-foot sign, "Billboards next." Ironically, the owner of the building with the sleepy sign lives in Norwell. I haven't been in Norwell for a few years, but the last time I was there, the Dunkin' Donuts sign, the Dunkin' Donuts had a wooden sign. When I was working in Quincy a couple of years ago, city councilors were talking about phasing out some of the bright neon signs in that city on Adams Street, just as we're putting them up on Adams Street. See the sleepy sign on Newport Avenue, it's wooden. I've been south along Route 3A. The minute you cross the line from Weymouth to Hingham, you will know. In Hingham, along 3A, the signs are lit from above in contrast to the backlit neon signs in Weymouth. If you further venture into the shipyard, you'll find 50, maybe more, commercial businesses with our recommended signage. You're not going to see all this stuff. They are all successful, so it is not anti-business to seek conservative signage, tasteful signage. In fact, I think it helps business. When this article was considered by the Sign Review Committee, I taped the meeting. Unfortunately, I loaned my recorder to my granddaughter, and it's in Pennsylvania. I could be wrong, but at no time did I hear committee members recommend holding this off until October. What I did hear were members who had unanimously opposed sleepies and who indicated that certain of the worst signs kind of floated in as grandfathered signs. Members clearly said they would like to see some end to grandfathered signage and see effective code enforcement. The reason for the urgency now is that the 5 months till October, selectmen could approve any number of similar signs. Mr. Whiteside knows that I prepared an article with about 65 signatures for last October's meeting. You learn something new every day. You need 100, and October is a special town meeting. That article, so obviously the article didn't go in. Since October, and this is March, the signs on the expressway have gone up, the big 18-foot sign have gone up. So there is an urgency now. And I said then, in addition, those seeking such signs could claim. So if somebody wants a sign between now and October, those people could claim that we've already set a precedent, and they could have a case. So without a moratorium, these signs could pop up on any business, professional, or commercial venture anywhere in town. I'm sorry, there's another page. Okay. Just 10 years ago, selectmen were traditionalists as well. In 2004, selectmen actually pulled a liquor license from a business whose signs offended them. They also speedily rejected offensive window signs. See October 2004 times. In contrast, this board, without motion, ignored the sign bylaw and encouraged the town planner to allow signs at an angle. That's the piece of the sign bylaw I showed you, at an angle from buildings. Maybe after a committee has studied this, the members and residents will decide they like these signs in atmosphere. If that's so, perhaps the town meeting will consider a tax on them. Why not get some money out of it if we like it? And also consider the master plan recommends preserve the character. Consider this. Just this October, our DPW director announced $1 million grant from Mass Works that will enhance Elliott Street with brick sidewalks and Victorian lights. And also we're getting the 2 Victorian clocks. With this old-fashioned lights and the master plan, it sounds like there's some kind of disconnect in this town. I mean, we either want antique lights or we want neon signs. I can't imagine neon signs and an antique light with the neon sign. It's time to use. It's not just some residents of Precinct 7 or 6. At the Sleepy's hearing, a woman from Reedsdale Road spoke. And this quote is from an email sent to me from a resident, I think in Precinct 9. Going through East Milton Square recently at night was disappointing. It's starting to look a little honky-tonk with the backlit signs. I don't want any more and prefer to see the signs gone. Upscale should be the goal in our town. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave.
Don't go off yet, but because this would segue into our next discussion.
And I'm afraid I'm...
Unless there is another citizen out there who wants to speak at citizen speak on a matter other than fair and other than condominium zoning. All right, I don't see any citizens, so stick around.
I was going to leave because I would be tempted to interfere with your discussion.
Well, it's just that
Okay, I
You
will
know,
stay. I would be happy to stay.
you have
Thank
sort
you.
of prompted this discussion.
Thank you.
But
I
it
hope
does
so.
seem to me, and this is what it seemed to me when I was watching the selectmen on TV, is that this particular article is, in my view, it's a zoning article because you vote to declare a moratorium, which basically says no signs, and the moratorium will extend until such time as the moderator appoints a 5-member committee, which conducts a thorough study, and comes back and some action is taken on their recommendation. And if it doesn't do so, the moratorium would last potentially forever. And in my view, this is zoning at its finest. And the planning board should conduct a public hearing on this. And we should advertise it, and we should get public input.
I agree. I see Mike's nodding his head.
Yeah, I would agree with it. I mean, I think the town meeting asked us to send the sign bylaw that was proposed last October back to the planning board for further study
Right.
for, I think, this coming October. They
I
didn't
had-
necessarily give us a deadline, but I think it was on our
It's on my,
agenda
it's on my list of zoning articles that I wanted to bring for
for
October.
October.
So
I mean, I suppose we could.
Long last.
it's actually relatively long, yeah.
It is a long
Yeah.
last.
So, we could certainly look at a moratorium through October 2015.
But
that would
this
be a
is
modification.
on the
so
warrant now.
I understand, so
And if we have our public hearing, then of course, we determine
make a-
after it what we recommend should be done with this.
so then I would agree.
Yeah.
May I say this, as far as waiting till October?
No, I'm saying you would have it go, the moratorium run through October.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
But
I
we
don't
can't
care
make
when.
that change without a public hearing.
Oh,
Right.
We don't want to, you have been eloquent, but you don't necessarily speak for the town. And the town should have the opportunity to comment, since this is, in my view, a zoning matter, and since the law requires a public hearing before the planning board recommends whatever it recommends, I think that we've got to
Right.
have a public hearing with notice given in the newspaper, and we should probably do it as quickly as we can.
Can we do this on April
Do you have
9th?
enough time to get it in for April
We have
9th?
it already scheduled on the draft agenda for April 23rd.
Okay, because we have to have the 2 weeks' notice. Yep. All right, so April 23rd makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we might want to invite Joe Prondak to that meeting. I've talked to him about different signs and this and that and so forth. He says he just cannot keep up with the violations.
I think that inviting the building inspector to our meetings adds a certain gravitas, which
I think it would also be helpful in evaluating what we want to do for the October town meeting, to have people come up and speak about their frustrations or otherwise with signs, and certainly to hear from the building inspector, because that could give us a little bit of a roadmap as to where we want to go.
Great.
let's check the ad with me, because we really do want, well, you have a certain connection with a local newspaper, And so the newspaper could put a little blurb in saying that there would be a public hearing on the 23rd about signs. I mean, you'll get the legal notice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the paper could
Actually,
sort
instead
of
of doing
set
my
up.
work, I did this, so I'll have to do that to them tomorrow. Yeah, I'll get that in next week, yeah. The 23rd?
Yeah, Bill, is your hand up or are you waving?
How about that? I think that you need to, if you have this discussion, you should have it with the sign review committee at the same time.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because the technicality behind what signs contain, what they are, and what this article says, kind of goes counter to just basic technology. When you talk about lights, saying that LED lights shouldn't be used, this building primarily runs on LED lights.
That's
true.
Many, many homes
I
run on
think
LED
that, I think
lights.
that the
But I think there's a
suggestion
difference
has been made that this needs
I
a
understand that,
little
that's what I'm
bit of
saying.
work.
You
Yeah.
need to
But
have,
there's a difference also between, lighting this building and commercial lighting.
Well, and it's
advertising.
it's backlit versus lit from an external source, which is another matter. So the external source could
is
be
a-
LED,
This
but
is a
not the backlit.
preview of what
Yeah.
we're going to be doing on the 23rd.
and therefore you should have that committee at the same time.
But bear in mind, we can have the committee there so that we can certainly invite the committee, but it really is a planning board hearing on a zoning article. I mean, that's what it is.
But it might be helpful to hear from them if they're having problems with the
Oh,
current
I would be
language.
happy,
Yeah.
I would be happy, we don't have that, I mean, they can post it. It doesn't have to be advertised as a joint meeting, however,
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
if they, if they can't get a quorum or whatever,
Right.
it doesn't matter, we're
Right,
going to go
exactly.
ahead anyhow.
Yes, yes, agreed.
Yes.
You also are taking and voting on an article that's, what you said isn't what the article is saying. It's a moratorium until town meeting passes what the recommendations
Which,
are.
which could go forever,
It could.
because they could never
You could
pass
shut
them.
down all
We
signs.
could also put in, as part of our recommendation to town meeting, a time limit on it.
As long as you're
Yeah, exactly.
extremely careful.
Yes. Are we always
Yes.
extremely careful?
This is, first of all, new backlit, which is what I wanted you to put in. New backlit, not LED signs, the bulbs we have. And also, second paragraph in red, or commercial signs currently allowed under the under the current town bylaws. I mean,
Do we have your?
that's actually a duplicate.
You're mixing your stuff
We're
up
not
here.
mixing anything, all we're doing is putting what we've got here.
That is what we're
This is
going to
what
have a
we're
meeting.
advertising.
but-
But it's
this is what Laura's
exactly
talking
like what we're about to talk, or what you're going to talk about in a few minutes, is that we have a condominium article, and someone has come up with something completely different, and you're going to be discussing something that's completely different. This is what we would advertise. I think
Right.
that this is zoning, and that's what we would
And I
advertise.
agree. We
And then if
started
there
it
were a
today.
recommendation that it be amended to say whatever, then so be it.
Right.
But it would be a recommendation which would come out quite late in the process.
But
And
it
the
would still
warrant,
be before town
and the
meeting.
warrant committee would probably be extremely
Delighted to have a recommendation.
delighted
prior
to
town meeting.
finally get a recommendation out of the planning board. All right, so.
Thank you.
Great.
you,
Thank you very much.
Wait,
Thank you.
can you spend another 2 minutes with
I can
us?
spend an hour, but I don't think you want to
Do we
listen
have
to me.
something to engage the next 2 minutes before I leave you to it?
Well, we could
I know
spend
that,
2 minutes.
I know that
because-
Mr. First and Emily are interested in more commercial development in
Right.
different, so it's really important that something gets settled here. I mean, if the town wants it, good, let's make some money off these.
I think this planning board has made clear that we want to see the sign bylaws changed.
Yes.
The real sign bylaw.
I think
I
so.
mean, the lawn sign bylaw, I agree. I've seen some ugly things on lawns, I really have. But the fact of the matter is, if you pass that next May, that takes down every sign in the town. I mean, these, once they're approved, they're there.
Yes, that's right. They're grandfathered in when the sign bylaw changes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can I make one comment to, Laura keeps making the same comment every time about the taxes. Once the sign is on the building, it's part of the building, it's part of the property
It's an
of the building.
improvement, yeah.
It is taxed. It's mixed in with the tax part.
Are
So
we
it's
taxing
already
it
there.
higher? Are we taxing them higher?
Nope, it's part of the business property.
Can we tax them higher than
well,
we do
however it's assessed.
That would be another
It would
article.
be a business, it's part of the business property, but it would be part of the assessment of the building.
A specific
Because
sign
the
tax
sign
a
is
new article.
considered a fixture
Right.
as opposed to
I would
a,
assume they have more of a value than a wooden sign, so I would assume they probably do get taxed more.
well,
They
it
would be taxed at
depends.
the higher value of the sign, yeah, I agree.
They assess things at my house by value, so I would assume they assess things there by value.
It would depend. Okay, now, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Now, as you recall, last night, thank you for coming in. That worked out very well, didn't it? We had
Did
a
work out quite well.
productive citizen speak, and then we
Are going to segue into the next
we're
thing?
going to go into the next article. Now, as you recall, yesterday, I said that because the amended article would affect the value of my property, I wasn't going to participate as a planning board member, and I'm not going to participate as a planning board member. I will say that I am entitled to participate as a interested resident because that's the ethics law allows me to do that. But I'm not going to participate as an interested resident tonight. So,
And since this table is a slightly different setup than the other table,
This is the condo hearing.
all right, so the next item on our agenda is the condominium bylaw. And Marion, when we last left this, you were going to look into a few things for us. I believe you'd requested from the moderator whether or not it was going to be within the scope of the article. So come forward and tell us what you found out.
Well, I did email the moderator a few days ago, but about 5 o'clock tonight he called, because I've been calling him. And I also received a forwarded email, more or less at the same time, that was a response by town council. But the moderator said that he would rule an amendment of this nature to be within the scope of the article. And town council said the same thing, but their rationale is that it's so much narrower than the article that was filed, which is a rationale that you could apply to this situation. If you look at the article that was filed, it would apply to the Hillside Street site that this article attempts to address, the amendment attempts to address. It would also apply to many other sites all over town. And that's what people are going to see before town meeting, and they're all going to have notice that there could be an article passed, there could be a vote at town meeting to allow a very broad application of condominium use in a lot of sites and without a great deal of restriction. This article addresses only one, it's designed to address only one site, and if that's not effectively done, then it needs to be fixed, because it's only supposed to. But it also imposes a lot more restrictions on design, size of lots, and it can be further amended in all of those regards. And it says that the article only applies with particular conditions, and designed basically to describe this 13.13 acre site that's on Ford Ranch Road and Hillside Street. So that's the rationale, and that's the response that I've received from the moderator. Now, the moderator makes his rulings at town meeting,
Right.
but he was kind enough to respond ahead of time, and town council had sent an opinion, I think, to the selectmen. I'm not sure who would ask for it, but and then that was copied to me, so I also received that. So the answer is that this could be, it would be possible to discuss this amendment as an amendment. It changes the language, it much narrows the article, but it's still about condominium development, and it's much more restrictive as to where it could be applied. I do not really think that there is time, we talked about it last night, to file this as a separate article.
Okay.
And so I think if it's going to be considered, it needs to be considered as an amendment. I think it's worth having more discussion, and I think if the planning board is willing to encourage that, it's productive no matter what, because at least we find out where we stand with this proposal. I would really, I mean, I'd urge the planning board to consider, think about it if you need more time, but to consider saying that at least that you want this to go to town meeting, that you approve it to that extent, that you will somehow endorse having the discussion at town meeting. And I think the warrant committee needs to hear from the planning board. And you need to decide whether you think it's worth discussing. I'm sure it's going to be difficult for you to say whether this has a chance of passing right now, because it's a new proposal. You've heard from neighbors, they have some objections. There are things that can be done to improve the language, and there are things that you can do to improve the language that might make it a bylaw that even the developer wouldn't use, which is the way these things go. But that's the situation we're in right now. It's not perfect. It's not, that hasn't occurred. That discussion hasn't occurred. It's begun, but it's certainly not complete.
So where that leaves us is last night on the article that's actually on the warrant, the condominium planned unit development. We had gotten to the point where we were going to recommend that that gets sent back to the planning board at the Maytown meeting. With this being ruled within the scope of that article, it means that we have a couple of options that we didn't otherwise have. We can continue to say that the article at town meeting should be referred back to the planning board. We could continue our discussions on the amendment that Marion has proposed and come to either a conclusion that we would support it and be the ones to bring forward that amendment. We could say that we would support it but allow Marion to bring that forward, or somebody else, however that works. Or we could also say that, and any of those options could have amendments to the language that she's brought forward, or we could also say that we think that amendment should also come back to the planning board for proposal in October. And I don't think that's a decision we need to make tonight. Because the other one is already in the warrant, it would have gone into the warrant with a no recommendation at this time, which is the usual practice if the planning board hasn't had their public hearing by the time the warrant's gone to press. And so we have between now and really the first night of town meeting to make that decision. It would, of course, be more helpful to the warrant committee and to the town meeting members to know in advance. So I would not wait till the first night of town meeting to make that decision. But we certainly have time at our next two meetings, April 9th and April 23rd, to discuss this and see how we would like to deal with it. So, Brian, you look like you're wanting to ask a question.
I was going to make a comment.
Yes.
So I think this bylaw certainly is less risky from the standpoint that it doesn't involve every single piece of land in the town with very little guidance in the zoning as to what can be developed there. This particular property has been before this planning board on a number of occasions at this point, and this is the second, what I'm going to call very narrow bylaw from a site standpoint that's come before this planning board in my fairly short tenure on the planning board. You know, my feeling is that this board and this town is going to continue to wrestle with these issues and these types of zoning proposals that come forward until we come up with some sort of more general zoning that will give someone some direction as to what we're looking for as a town here, and that would be determined by town meeting. With regard to this specific bylaw, I think a substantial amount of work has clearly gone into it. It has been slightly vetted by the condominium committee, though not fully vetted by the condominium committee. The condominium committee has a fair amount of work that it would need to do on it. and I think based on the nature of the amount of activity that's happened on this site, it would be great to hear from town meeting what the general consensus is about this type of properties, and then also be able to potentially derive some feeling about where the community would be on a general bylaw as we move towards October. I'd very much like to see this bylaw in front of the town meeting for those two reasons. And additionally, I think that it is the type of proposal that this town needs to see more of from a development standpoint, but they have to obviously be done right and done carefully. All of that said, I agree with you that I don't think the decision needs to be made tonight. I think that the condo bylaw review committee is meeting on April 1st again.
I was going to ask.
And
Okay,
I
great.
would recommend that this planning board request comment on the entire bylaw from the condo committee prior to its next meeting on April 9th. So I think that should be a formal request from the planning board to the planning board subcommittee.
Yeah.
I also would,
Recommend that the committee take a look at the article that's going
to
to,
provide its comments back to the planning board.
could we have the committee look at this article as well, or this amendment to the article?
I would say, I'm sorry, my recommendation would be to only look at the amendment and
Oh.
not, they've already voted, the condominium committee has already voted to not move forward with the other one. So that, they've already given their comment on that.
Right.
I'd also strongly recommend that between now and April 9th, the proponent of this bylaw work very hard to meet with the neighbors in the surrounding neighborhood, because I think that will be a very important part of our decision, will be to hear from the affected neighbors. And I think that we would really expect that before we could do much on acting on this. I think the neighborhood insight is obviously a pretty key component of anything that happens here, because it's such a narrow bylaw.
They should also be notified that we're going to discuss it on April 9th, and notified that the condo committee is going to be discussing it, so that they have the opportunity to.
So notified just by flyer, by not
Do we
legal,
have a
not legal
list of
notification,
the,
correct?
Not a legal notification, but do we have a list of the abutters from the last time we had a permit? Do we have email and phone list, or is it, okay, so it's only that.
Can we ask the abutter to do that as opposed to having our planning staff do that, or do we want the planning staff?
We could
to
ask,
do that?
if we've got a couple
It's
of
not that
abutters.
many.
Okay, then let's let them know, because I think we really do need
We'll
to
have
hear
the
from them on
planning staff
this.
do that.
I agree that we should make a formal request to the condominium committee to review this and to give us their opinion, because that committee has been doing a lot of work on condos, and it would be helpful to have that. So I can make that request
Great.
formally to do that. Any other questions or comments from members of the board?
Just briefly, I concur with the article that's going before town meeting, that it's, some comments were made last night, it's too broad, and I just don't think it's very effective.
Agree with that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm jumping on some of the points that you made on Marion's amendment. Admittedly, it's very specific to a site, so I'd have to have the input of the abutters as well as other neighbors. It being specific to a site.
Exactly, yeah, and which is why I don't think we should come to any sort of vote on it tonight. I think we should continue this to the 9th. Have the chance for the condo committee to weigh in on it. Have the chance for the abutters to be notified. Have you have a chance to meet with the neighbors and talk with them about it.
It would be unfair to
Yeah.
try to vote on it without more input.
Absolutely, and that also gives us more of a chance to look at it, because we haven't had the thing about having citizens zoning articles in front of town meeting is there's, of course, always a chance that town meeting will pass that article. And so if we are to make any sort of recommendation for amendments, we want to make sure that we make the sort of recommendations that mean that if the article, whether an original or the amended form is passed, that it's something that we find is an enforceable zoning regulation. So we should take our pens out and go through it ourselves as well.
I want to second that point. I think in looking at the first submission that's now on the warrant, I found that to be a fairly non-threatening submission. I don't think there was a high likelihood of it passing.
Right.
I'm not opining here in any way about whether or not this will pass, but I think it has a better chance than the first one did. And so to the extent, to Emily's point, that we feel there are things in here we wouldn't want to live with, I think we probably better address them.
Just in the outside chance that this amendment, passes.
If
In
that
the
actually
outside
passes.
chance that we, in the next few weeks, decide that we don't want to recommend passage, but it passes anyway, I would want our pen to have been on it.
Anything else?
I had a
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
question. In terms of the original language?
Yes.
The one that's on the warrant, where does that stand as far as the board's concerned? I know that there was a motion to refer
Which has
back.
been
and
removed,
then-
yeah.
So that's still out there?
That motion has not been brought forward back again. Now, we could do it two ways. We could go ahead and vote on that original one tonight, so that we know, seems pretty clear we don't want that to go forward, so we could go ahead and vote on that tonight, and then vote on the amendment coming back, say, look, we know we don't want this to go forward, we're of multiple minds about the amendment, or we could wait and vote them both at the same time, which actually might be the cleaner way of doing it.
That's the cleaner way to do it.
All right, so then that's going to be on hold, to answer your question.
It's becoming apparent what the opinion is, but
Yeah,
I did make comments. I think we can table them until April 9th.
yeah, I think that would be
I think they were
reasonable.
shared with the planning board, and I also think they were shared with.
And I have a bunch of comments that I have not yet shared with the planning board, so that might be something, if in reading through it, if you have any comments, please send them to Tim and Bill for collection, and then we can look at all of them at the same time. So,
I think we have, do we have a editable version of this?
Yes, well, you do actually, because when I do a draft like this, I send it out as a Word document. You can do
Okay.
anything you want
So
to it.
I'll resubmit my
Yeah.
changes in red line then.
Marion, before we
If you
continue
wish-
this.
if- I'm sorry.
I was going to say, before we continue this, do you
Yes.
have anything else you want
I
to
just
add?
wanted to ask that if you're willing to, and you are preparing comments with amendments, if you give them to me, not that I'm going to start a dialogue, but I should take them back to the developer, because I think it's important that the developer and the owner have a chance to review amendments and decide what their position is on them, or whether that they somehow make it impossible. That's what we're going to try to learn in the next couple of weeks.
Fair enough. Now, was anybody here in the audience wanting to speak on the condo article? All right, if not, we're going to continue this to April 9th. At what time? Do we have anything scheduled for April 9th yet?
We do.
All right.
7 o'clock. You have
7
a
o'clock?
scenic road hearing at 6:45.
Okay, so continue to April 9th at 7 o'clock.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if somebody can inform Alex.
I made it 20 minutes.
All right, we did continue it to 7:15, didn't we?
We did, and look at that, it's 7:15, 7:16.
Okay, continued
Help you out.
application by their nursery, or perhaps not. But we're going to, it's the Thayer Nursery matter that we are going to continue the hearing in. And we're going to hear from Mr. Corcoran.
Good evening. Ned Corcoran, on behalf of the Oldfield family, their nursery et al. Let's see, really, a little bit sort of the board's pleasure as to how to carry on this evening. I have some materials that I prepared in response to some of the specific questions that were asked last night. I did evaluate the notion of who is the applicant. And clearly, the initial application, which we would rely on, indicate that Josh and Maggie Oldfield are applicants. But I think also Thayer Nursery Corp. is a co-applicant, because I think Thayer Nursery Corp. is a legitimate successor in interest, and has the right to apply for the permit. I think the question, who is the permit applicant, who is the applicant? I think it's the language says that the planning board may grant a special permit for landscape business use on such lot or lots, provided that the applicant or applicants or their predecessors in interest on that date, July 2012, held a special permit. The Oldfields, Josh and Maggie, and their mother held a special permit. Thayer Nursery Corp. is a legitimate successor in interest by reason of essentially a transfer of interest from one to the other. It doesn't, the bylaw doesn't specifically define how a successor in interest is defined. In my opinion, it could be an unrelated third party who may have purchased the rights to develop if they were able to secure a permit. The fact that there was a permit on the property in 2012 is critical. Having said that, Josh and Maggie are the shareholders of Thayer Nursery Corp. It is a closely held family corporation. It is common to the family. And I think it's pretty clear that it has the right to be the applicant in this case. To facilitate a broader issue, to address the concerns about who and what, and how would this applicant or the permit ultimately be defined and judged by for the town. Maggie and Josh are co-applicants with Thayer Nursery, and the leases which currently exist between Oldfield Family LLC and Thayer Nursery Corp. Will be amended. Josh and Maggie will become co-tenants to the property with Thayer Nursery, so that the co-tenants are the applicants, all of the applicants, and all of the tenants are jointly responsible for the obligations under the permit and under the lease, or under the leases. So, with respect to that, I have some redlined materials. I have not identified in this specifically that the leases would be amended. That would be that is an action that will have to take place that have not yet been amended. We will do that before the April 9th meeting. But I do clarify, one, that Josh and Maggie are, so let me pass out what I have here and explain what I have. So basically what I did was a handful of things, really in response to some requests from the board last night, but I did, with respect to the narrative, do two things. One is a red line first page, which just adds clarification that Josh and Maggie are co-applicants to Thayer Nursery Corp. Within the body of the text. Their names appear and are signed as applicants on the town's application form. That is the only change that I make to that first section.
And it makes sense that you did that, because even though there is the 67 permit goes to the individuals and says it's not to be assigned, and we don't want to grant a permit to some entity other than the entity that has the nursery permit, because that would be an invitation to confusion.
I mean,
We want to make sure there's a continuity, that everyone who's doing anything on the property can be identified as within the same group.
Did we look into or find out if we could have town council review that?
Review what?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to get into all the legalese, but
Review, well, I mean,
the
what,
application and the applicants, that they're proper. I'm listening to it, it says you have to have held a special permit in 2012. Did their nursery corp hold a special
well,
permit?
but he is now saying that the applicant will be the applicants listed on page 1 of the application, and that page 2, look at page 1, it's the handwritten
Yep.
page, in the book.
Oh. In my mind, this doesn't have bearing on the discussion of whether a special permit would be granted. It's more, I think, and I don't want to put words in Mr. Dunn's mouth, but I think he was warning us of future
Well,
legal implications.
there may be legal implications, but if the people who hold the 67 permit are the same people, I mean, the children of the Oldfields are listed in the 67 permit, and so if the children of the Oldfields apply for the special landscaping permit, it seems to me that they're on as strong a legal footing as they can be on. And I don't think we need ask town council about that. We may, we may run into town council matters, and certainly we're going to hear from Mr. Dunn, and he can attempt to persuade us otherwise, and maybe just to put this one to as much to bed as we can. Mr. Dunn, why don't you come and
Again, my intention is not to slow the process down, affect the permit in
It's
any
to
sense.
make
My
it-
intention
it's
is
to
to make
make it
sure it's
go.
clean when we're starting.
I agree, and I personally think that having Maggie and Josh as the applicants here makes it clean.
Okay. Your opinion means something to me.
All right, well,
Alex, just a quick question before Mr. Dunn speaks. To the extent that a permit is held but not being used, is there an expiration period? I'm just concerned about who is actually operating under that permit, and I want to make sure on the same basis that
Under
we
the
understand.
67 permit?
Or the 87 permit, I guess.
Or the
because
87 permit.
adjusted it, and
the 67 as updated
as
in
updated in
87.
87. So obviously, they had a permit. The question is, if they were operating as their nursery illegally, does it,
Well, I mean, the permit holders are Maggie and Josh, as far as I can tell. Isn't that right, Ned?
Yeah, and that permit is clear.
Yeah.
It must be they who are.
and were they operating, was it Maggie and Josh operating under that permit on the date in 2012, is my question.
As far as I know, yes. Their nursery corp entered into a lease of the property in 2013 or 14. It was somewhat after that.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean relative to who's operating the permit today?
Well, I'm not asking,
That's a
that's
question.
irrelevant to me because it's based on who held it in 2012 and if it was in existence. Okay, thank you.
But you're going to, I think, say that they're operating the permit today.
They are the
They
holders
are,
of the
they are the
permit.
permit, they are the permit holders, and they would be operating, since no one else can operate the permit.
Right. Understood going forward, that I understand. My key is who's operating it on the date required in 2012.
2012, it
There was
was
no
Maggie
lease in
and Josh.
place, so it was Maggie and Josh. That was my question. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, now, what does this say to you, Mr. Dunn?
I'm still at a loss as to what is this a new application? Is this another new application? I mean, because now it's a new applicant, right? So if there's a new applicant, then it's a new application, and that triggers notice requirements, I think. And I don't think you can just change the name of the applicant and proceed under, like nothing has happened. That's just my preliminary view.
They are the applicants.
Well, that was withdrawn, wasn't it? I thought we agreed to that yesterday.
No, if you look at your booklet, did you get a booklet? If not, you should ask Mr. Corcoran to give you one.
I have it,
They-
but it's, I mean,
Well, the
listen,
first-
I
The
can't,
first page says they're the applicants.
right.
List
and
them
that
as
app-
applicants.
And that application was dated, right, October 21st of 2014, which was withdrawn, it's my understanding, with the submission of the new application. And now we're submitting another application.
Well, it's my understanding this is a revised application.
With new applicants.
No, with the same applicants.
Okay. So just so I know, because the goalposts are really changing here
All right.
rapidly. I
But
mean, they're moving.
let's just, they say Maggie and Josh are the applicants. The application says Maggie and Josh are the applicants, and the documents, it's a revised application that we're having a new hearing on. They didn't pay a new fee for it, it's just a revised application, and we're having
So we'll pretend that the application that they submitted on the 10th doesn't exist? Is that what we're doing?
it's going to be superseded by the revised application.
So just so I'm straight, the application that was submitted on October 21st was superseded by the application that was submitted on March 10th, which is now being superseded by the application that is being submitted on March 26th.
It's being revised slightly to make clear who the
They were
applicants
not part of the special permit, so they didn't hold the
are.
special
I mean,
permit in 2012.
it seems to me that that's as good as we can get, and it isn't bad.
Well, and this sort of goes to the point I was making yesterday initially,
Individuals held the special permit.
and I'm sorry to put it in these terms, but on our end, the goalposts are continuing to move here. And it's difficult to understand who the applicant is, what they're proposing. I mean, I can guess what they're trying to say now, but, you know,
Whoever,
you would think that an applicant would come in before this board with their ducks in a row and not saying, we propose we're going to do this with regards to the corporation, and this is how we're going to do it. I mean, what if they don't do it? I mean, this is pure speculation. They're supposed to have,
you raised a good point, and it seems to me that it's been addressed.
They canceled their nursery.
with something that's going to be done at some future date. I mean, even with all that, it's,
We want there to be continuity of interest in the nursery operations and whatever agricultural operation there is. We want this permit, if we issue one, to control. And we don't want people saying, oh, well, their nursery isn't bound by this. We want, if we issue a permit, we want it to control what happens on that property. And it appears legally best that Maggie and Josh be the applicants.
okay. Now, I'll spin that out to its logical conclusion. And, you know, like I said at the very beginning, I didn't write the 1967 special permit, I didn't write the 1987 special permit, and I didn't write the bylaw amendment. All I can do is read what they say, and you don't have to be a lawyer to read the very simple words that the documents say. The bylaw amendment, and I'm sorry to reiterate this, but there's two requirements. That a landscaping business was being operated on the property, that the applicant or the applicant's predecessor in interest held the special permit at that time. No one disputes, I guess maybe now it's disputed, that Thayer Nursery Corporation, I mean, are we really going to sit here and say that Thayer Nursery Corporation was not operating Thayer Nursery on the property in July 2012? I mean, that's really bending the realms of reality here. I mean, everybody knows that Thayer Corporation was operating on the property at that point, right? I mean, even the documents that were submitted by Thayer Nursery Corporation show that they held a leasehold interest in 2009 on the property. I didn't submit those documents, Thayer submitted those documents. And now to pretend that date that's in their application materials doesn't say 2009, now it says 2012, that's not what it says. Thayer Nursery Corporation was operating on the property, not Josh and Maggie Oldfield. So Josh and Maggie Oldfield hold the special permit rights, but they weren't operating on the property, right?
Well, they were on the property, and they were operating.
Their Nursery Corporation was operating.
Well, I understand that.
They
but
were working for Thayer
They were
Nursery
there, and
Corporation.
they were doing stuff. The question, I mean, you raise an interesting point, whether or not they illegally transferred or unlawfully transferred the 67, 87 special permit, the rights under it to their nursery, which of course they couldn't do. So, but if you think of it, since they couldn't transfer the rights to their nursery, they had to have been the operators.
Or at least the holders. And that went back to my question, is if they're not operating, but they hold the permit, does the permit go away?
Yes.
No.
It expires. I mean, I didn't read 40A. I didn't write 40A either. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's the law. And they weren't
But
using
look,
it.
look, the permit was being used because there was a nursery operation going on there continuously. In fact, that's why we're here.
All right. I mean, I don't know what to say.
All
I mean,
right.
if this, you know,
They're
if the
going to
sky
be-
is green in this world, then the sky is green. I can't change that.
They're going to be the applicants.
Okay. So if the end game here, if you just follow me, right? If the end game is, if Josh and Maggie Oldfield
Yeah.
are the applicants,
You know,
how does their Nursery Corporation, how do they operate on, is there a transfer of the special permit rights to their Nursery Corporation? I mean, I don't get it.
all right. Mr. Corcoran, explain.
No, not in that case. There will be the operation, well.
You
Maggie-
don't have, I mean, you can think about this.
Maggie and Josh will be the permit holders. I would suggest that the permit could also be written to the corporation, because the corporation is a related entity to them.
And then we would, I mean, I think that they could be an applicant.
And it
But
can-
I do think that Maggie and Josh have to be applicants also.
agree.
But, so you want their nursery and Maggie and
I am
Josh to
saying
be
that-
the applicants?
Yes, so I am saying that the applicants are Maggie and Josh and their nursery corp. I mean, it's all related. They're related entities, the
They-
people involved.
they own it.
It's, I mean, let's cut through other stuff here. It is a family-operated business that's been operating on this property for 50 years. No one-
Is it a subchapter S?
It is a corporation. I don't know, I don't know the answer to that question, whether it's a subchapter S or whatever. But it is a family-related business. You have a family-related LLC that owns the land. You have a family-related corporation that is in business to operate. And you have individuals that hold the permit, and they are all intertwined with each other. The bigger question from my perspective for Maggie and Josh is more of a, personal liability question. If they are the holders of the permit and the operators of this, are they properly insured if there's something that the corporation does while operating the property? That's an insurance risk question. But from the town's perspective, from the neighborhood's perspective, the question is, who is it? It's Maggie and Josh. It's their business. It's their business operating on that property. The family owns the property. The family owns the business. They are combined in this situation. I think we're reading an awful lot of other detail into what is a fairly generally written piece of the bylaw. The bylaw is not very specific in terms of what and how things are.
No, but we don't want to do something in a vacuum. And we have the 67 permit and 87 permit updating it. And we don't want to act as though those aren't still out there and in effect and in fact binding on the people they were issued to, because in my view they are in effect and binding. And so we want to make sure that this permit, that as Mr. Dunn points out, that these few ducks are in a reasonable line, And I think this is the way to do it. Do members of the board object to having Thayer Nursery as an applicant?
Well, it's, on the application that I'm looking at from October 21st, it says Maggie and Josh Oldfield.
Right.
Those are the applicants.
That's what it says.
And then the rest of the page, when it goes down to.
And then the
that's
next
a
page,
narrative.
they say someone else is the
But I see
applicant.
the next follow-on pages is just a narrative, and that
Well,
this is the actual application.
Well, no, the whole thing is the
I see it,
application.
I know it says Josh Baggy, and it would seem to me, and maybe, again, you can interject with the legal ramifications, but it would seem to me that the bylaws, with its predecessors and everything, wants it to literally be, to get to my point, stand in the family more or less. And to give the corporation an the permit
Right,
means
they
I
could
could
sell
sell the
it.
corporation,
Right,
now
exactly.
it gets the permit with it.
Well, we could.
Where I don't think the bylaw wants that to
I
happen.
think that you've got a,
Josh can't sell Maggie and she can't sell, but you could sell a corporation and give them the.
but the
special
planning
permit
board,
if they were on the
the planning board can restrict the special permit, the transferability of the special permit. You know, they can say, this is only good to the holders, to the applicants, and if you want to assign it,
But
you've
but
got
again,
to.
if the applicant's the corporation and you sell the corporation, then they can, they
You've got
can take the
you've
permit.
you've got a point.
Yeah, I think that's for the
I think it's
applicant.
best that the application is just MASH, Josh, Maggie Olson.
When this-
I would
And
agree
it
with
is.
that.
When this permit was, I would agree with that as well. When this permit was written in 1967, the business, according to the advertisements that were submitted, was running as their nursery.
Right.
So was
I
it,
think it was an also, no,
A DBA.
DBA.
okay, so it wasn't an,
When did
wasn't
it
a
stop being a
corporation.
DBA? You don't know?
Can I just ask a question? So let's say that you're proceeding with Maggie and Josh as being the applicant,
Yeah.
right? How, and again, you can imagine any which way you want, but Thayer Nursery Corporation is going to resume operations on the property.